Good morning, boys and girls. It's story time. Today we're on chapter 22, Prairie Fire. Spring had come. The warm winds smelled exciting, and all outdoors was large and bright and sweet. Big white shining clouds floated high up in clear space. Their shadows floated over the prairie. The shadows were thin and brown, and all the rest of the prairie was pale, soft colors of dead grasses. Pa was breaking the prairie sod, with Pet and Patty hitched to the breaking plow. The sod was a tough, thick mass of grass roots. Pet and Patty slowly pulled with all their might, and the sharp plow slowly turned over a long, unbroken strip of that sod. The dead grass was so tall and thick that it held up the sod where Pa had plowed. He didn't have a plowed field. The long strips of grass roots lay on top of grass, and grass stuck out between them. But Pa and Pet and Patty kept on working. He said that sod potatoes and sod corn would grow this year, and next year the roots and the dead grasses would be rotted. In 2 or 3 years, he would have nicely plowed fields. Pa liked the land because it was so rich, and there wasn't a tree or a stump or a rock in it. Now a great many Indians came riding along the Indian trail. Indians were everywhere. Their guns echoed in the creek bottoms where they were hunting. No one knew how many Indians were hidden in the prairie, which seemed so level, but wasn't. Often Laura saw an Indian where no one had been an instant before. Here's a picture of Pa, and here's the field that he's plowing, and there's Pa with Pet and Patty in the plow, and there's some Indians over here watching. Indians often came to the house. Some were friendly, some were surly and cross. All of them wanted food and tobacco, and Ma gave them what they wanted. She was afraid not to. When an Indian pointed at something and grunted, Ma gave him that thing. But most of the food was kept hidden and locked up. Jack was cross all the time, even with Laura. He was never let off the chain, and all the time he lay and hated the Indians. Laura and Mary were quite used to seeing them now. Indians didn't surprise them at all, but they always felt safer near Pa or Jack. One day they were helping Ma get dinner. Baby Carrie was playing on the floor in the sunshine, and suddenly the sunshine was gone. I do believe it's going to storm, Ma said, looking out of the window. Laura looked too, and great black clouds were billowing up in the south across the sun. Pet and Patty were coming running from the field, Pa holding to the heavy plow and bounding in long leaps behind it. Prairie fire, he shouted. Get the tub full of water. Put sacks in it. Hurry. Ma ran to the well. Laura ran to tug the tub to it. Pa tied Jack to the house. He brought the cow and calf from the picket line and shut them in the stable. He caught Bunny and tied her fast to the north corner of the house. Ma was pulling up buckets of water as fast as she could. Laura ran to get the sacks that Pa had flung out of the stable. Pa was plowing, shouting at Pet and Patty to make them hurry. The sky was black now. The air was as dark as if the sun had set. Pa plowed a long furrow west of the house and south of the house and back again east of the house. Rabbits came bounding past him as if he weren't there. Pet and Patty came galloping, the plow and Pa bounding behind them. Pa tied them to the north corner of the house. The tub was full of water. Laura helped Ma push the sacks under the water to soak them. Now, they're not talking about paper sacks, they're talking about burlap sacks. And burlap sacks are, if you've ever played, have you ever had gunny sack races? Those brown sacks you use? Those are called burlap sacks. And they're used for carrying potatoes usually. I couldn't plow but one furrow. There isn't time, Pa said. Hurry, Caroline, that fire is coming faster than a horse can run. A big rabbit bounded right over the tub while Pa and Ma were lifting it. Ma told Laura to stay at the house. Pa and Ma ran staggering to the furrow with the tub. Laura stayed close to the house. She could see the red fire coming under the billows of smoke. More rabbits went leaping by. They paid no attention to Jack, and he didn't think about them. He stared at the red undersides of the rolling smoke and shivered and whined while he crowded close to Laura. The wind was rising and wildly screaming. Thousands of birds flew before the fire. Thousands of rabbits were running. Pa was going along the furrow, setting fire to the grass on the other side of it. Ma followed with a wet sack, beating at the flames that tried to cross the furrow. The whole prairie was hopping with rabbits. Snakes rippled across the yard. Prairie hens ran silently, their necks outstretched and their wings spread. Birds screamed in the screaming wind. Now here's a picture of Pa's plow. I'll get up a little closer here. Here's a picture of Pa's plow, and here's the furrow. And see, the furrow is where you run the plow, and it turns the land over. So what Pa was trying to do, he was trying to make it dirt instead of grass, because dirt doesn't burn, grass does. So what this is called, it's called a fire line. He's trying to stop the fire from coming across into their yard. Pa's little fire was all around the house now, and he helped Ma fight it with wet sacks. Fire blew wildly, snatching at the dry grass inside the furrow. Pa and Ma thrashed at it with sacks. When it got across the furrow, they stamped it with their feet. They ran back and forth in the smoke, fighting that fire. And here you can see the fire coming towards them, the big smoke wall coming towards them, and all the animals running to get away from the fire. The prairie fire was roaring now, roaring louder